Hello, everybody, and welcome into another series preview here at the Hockey Writers. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, and for this series, which is a new one for the Oilers, the Ducks are in the playoffs back again after a long hiatus. I've got Brian Swane, as always, Oilers. Got Justin coming in to talk about the Ducks. He was here for our regular season preview, so welcome back, guys. Brian, how's it going?
Good. Yeah, there's definitely excitement here in Edmonton, like you say, to see somebody other than the Los Angeles Kings. So.
Yeah, 100%. We was talking before recording. It's like it's finally a new matchup. We want to see something new. Justin, how's it going?
I'm doing well. The Ducks, they kind of limped into the playoffs a little bit. It was very up and down year for them, so we'll see what version of them we get in this series.
For sure. I mean, like I said, they're here for the first time in a long time. Long rebuilding team. Now you probably could say they're not rebuilding anymore, but they're in a transition, I guess could say. So we'll start with a brief journey to the playoffs. I'll start with you, Justin, with the Ducks. I mean, at the beginning of the season, I don't know, we weren't really talking about them being a playoff team. I'm pretty sure when we were doing the season preview, we were saying they may be a better team with all the young guns and stuff like that. But they ended up being a really good, I mean, like you said, up and down throughout the season, had some great streaks and then went on a bit of a lull, but ended up back in the Pacific Division. They're not a wild card team. They're actually in the division as a playoff team. So what'd you think about their journey to this point?
Well, we kind of already talked about it. It was very up and down. They were good, and then they weren't so good, and they were really good again. And then kind of the end of the year, they weren't as great, but they did finish off a little strong with that win against Nashville. But really, it was encouraging to see all the young talent kind of step up for them. That was what the season was about. It was about Leo Carlson. It was about Cutter Gauthier. It was about the young guys really stepping up and having some freedom, kind of a contrast from last season. So not only are they in the playoffs, but they did it through their franchise pieces instead of, maybe some veterans leading the way.
For sure. I mean, they did brought in some veterans throughout, not just last season, but the season before that. And a lot of people were questioning why they're bringing Radko Gudas in, why are they bringing, Killorn in. And now you're looking at these are good moves going into the playoffs. These guys have a lot of experience. And I mean, Chris Kreider being added, Jacob Trouba, John Carlson, lots of great veteran talent that are going to probably be big parts of this playoffs. But yeah, I think they're going to need their young guys to continue what they were doing in the regular season too. All right, now over to you, Brian. I mean, talk about up and down. The Ducks, Oilers are the same way, up and down throughout the season. I know we're on all of our Oilers news and rumors talking about them, and there are times where like, I don't know, they might not even make the playoffs. What was their journey like?
Yeah, I mean, I would describe the season generally as pretty mediocre. And I mean, it wasn't even so much as it was up and down. They only won 4 games in a row once. They also never really had like a horribly long losing streak either. It was just like it was a mediocre year. Finally kind of seemed to put it here in the last few weeks. And it's kind of interesting how it's kind of coincided with Leon Draisaitl's injury. They finished 7-2-2, which is their best stretch of hockey extended period of more than 10 games all season long. And a lot of it's had to do with the return of Paul Coffey, who's kind of like their defensive specialist assistant coach. But also, they've just really clamped down. They've been playing a different game since Draisaitl got hurt. And it's almost like they just kind of realized that we can't outscore the opposition anymore. You know what? We're actually going to have to play smart, sound, responsible, structured hockey. And they've actually proven they can do it. Which has kind of been a surprise, but certainly a pleasant surprise if you're an Oilers fan. And they've added a few key pieces too. They've, some of the guys they traded for, Connor Murphy's made a big difference. Jason Dickinson's hurt right now, but he was having an impact as well in that respect. And, they've cut their goals against down per game by about 1.3 since before the Draisaitl injury, which is absolutely just incredible. And they're playing what you would actually call playoff hockey. as you go into it. So there's actually some reason for optimism here after what was actually, been a pretty, like I say, very underwhelming season, and certainly not what you would have expected or envisioned from a two-time defending conference champ.
For sure. I mean, and there was a chance they could have even won the division, which is pretty crazy. I mean, the division, McDavid said, was a pillow fight throughout the season. And
yeah, I mean, it was a pillow fight, right? Like I was tracking it, and if Vegas doesn't go on that great run at the end of the season, this would have been the lowest point total to win a division in the shootout era, right? Like I think they ended with 95, and the record before the season, where record low was 94. So I mean, this is the stats tell you one of the weakest divisions in the the modern history, right? You got LA in with 90 points. You got teams in the East. I think Washington finished with like 95 points and missed the playoffs. So, but you don't apologize for that, right? No one's apologized making the playoffs. So you're in, and now you've got a chance. You're one of the final 16 teams.
100%. So let's jump into this series because it is a new one. I mean, the Oilers and Ducks have faced each other in the past. It was a long time ago. None of these players are part of those teams. But it's going to be interesting to see how is it going. So I'll start with you, Justin. What storylines are you watching heading into this one? It's pretty much a veteran group going up against a young group, even though there is some veterans mixed in for the Ducks.
Yeah, the veterans have definitely helped Anaheim during their kind of maybe dry spells, or really when they're going, actually, their veterans are stepping up. But to me, the storyline is how the youth is going to perform. This is all their first playoff series, and the style of hockey they play, it can be aggressive at times. And it kind of is a contrast to what you expect from quote unquote playoff hockey. It'll be interesting to see how they play in terms of style. It'll be interesting to see how they perform. Because that's where the series is going to be won and lost. It is through guys like Carlson and Gauthier and Seneca. How are they going to perform? Because if they're not performing at the top of their games, they're probably going to lose the series, and probably by a decent margin.
Well, I mean, like you say, the young guys were the ones that led the way. You got a 40-goal scorer in Cutter Gauthier, which I don't know if anyone expected that at the beginning of this season. I'm sure the Flyers would have loved to have him be doing that with them, but it wasn't in the cards. That's definitely going to be something to watch. Those young guys are going to have to be as good as they were in the regular season, or even better, to get through this. Brian, what about you for the Oilers coming into this series? Obviously, I mean, Leon Draisaitl, I'm not sure if he's going to be back for these playoffs here, but what are the storylines heading in?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the biggest one for the Oilers right now, and he's been on the ice skating with the team for probably close to a week now, at least a few days. There is actually some talk that he could be back for game one. The Oilers really lucked out. Like, I mean, this series starts Monday night. I think several series will have already played their second game before the puck even drops on this series. And I mean, I think it's that close with Draisaitl right now, where it's like 24 hours can make a difference between whether he plays or not. So I think the Oilers really got lucky, and I think there is a chance he could be ready for game one. In the same token, he could be, maybe still a couple games away, but I think he'll be back sooner than later. Especially with Draisaitl. I mean, that's just his personality. I mean, I'm sure they're having a hard time keeping him. Yeah. They're doing it in his own best interest, obviously, but I'm sure they're having a hard time keeping him from off the ice. So that's a big factor. But then again, like I say, kind of piggybacking on what I was bringing up earlier, how are the Oilers going? Are they going to maintain this kind of new style of play they've adopted in his absence? And I think if they can continue to play that responsible, more sound hockey that they've developed in Draisaitl's absence, and then take him and put him back into this lineup, that really bodes well. So, and again, we don't know how Draisaitl's going to look. I mean, he's been out for, it's got to be getting close to like 5 weeks now. So is he going to be back to 100%? So lots of questions, and those are all very intriguing storylines to watch for me from an Oilers perspective, especially here in the first few games of the series.
Yeah, that defensive mindset that they have adopted, that, like say, playoff hockey type, they have to keep that going because, against the Ducks, they are a high flying offensive team. They were one of the teams that did make it to playoffs with a negative goal differential, which, I mean, that's kind of unheard of when you're looking at it, but they can score. We'll see how that goes throughout this series. All right, we mentioned a few players, but not always the stars are the big guys. I mean, of course, we're watching them, but a lot of the time it's those kind of underrated guys that kind of come through, and we'll see if any of them can do it. But Justin, who are you watching going into this series for the Ducks?
Yeah, depth is going to be very important, especially since the Ducks weren't a fantastic 5-on-5 team. I believe they had a negative goal differential at 5-on-5, or they were one of the worst teams at 5-on-5. So it's important to win in that area. A guy that I think can help, and on the penalty kill too, is Ryan Poehling. He has been a surprising emerger for them, I think. That was a good addition for them. He is one of the better third-line centers, I would say, in the National Hockey League. And, that's just the type of guy that can maybe turn a game around, a tight game. Another guy I'm looking at is Joe Stahl, again, for that same 5-on-5 reason. It's very important that the Ducks win at 5-on-5, because otherwise I could see them definitely losing here, especially with Edmonton's great power play. So, yeah, just a couple guys there.
Yeah, I mean, Poehling's was I don't know. Again, some of these players weren't expected to be big parts of the team, and he's ended up being pretty good for the Ducks too. Brian, what about you? I mean, the depth of it's going to be. We always talk about it every series. We've to do with the Oilers. Depth is always something we talk about. But what are you looking at? I mean, I'm sure goaltending is going to be part of
it. Yeah. Can you believe we actually made it this far without bringing up Oilers goaltending yet? So I'm going to end that right now, and I'm going to go right to Connor Ingram. He is the guy to watch. Obviously, I mean, I'm not going to rehash the saga of the Oilers goaltending. I think it's a story that's well known and well told at this point. But he's obviously solidified things in net for this team in the last 2 to 3 months, and that has been a huge factor for them. Especially, I mean, as much as anything here, then down the stretch that has really helped them kind of get their stuff together. So it's him, and he's not a guy. He has virtually no NHL playoff experience. So, I mean, that's fascinating to me. I have every reason to believe that I think he'll perform as well as he has in the regular season. I know that, you get the sense that he has confidence, the team has confidence in him. But until, you get out there and perform in the bright lights of the playoffs, you're never going to know what you're capable of. So that to me will be fascinating to see how he performs. And I think ultimately he may be the X factor player for this team more than anybody else.
Yeah, we're not talking about Stuart Skinner in this time, or Cal Pickard for that matter.
Well, I'm sure you got to do that on the Penguins Flyers preview, right? So,
yeah. Well, Skinner's still in the playoffs. He's on the other side. Yeah, for sure. All right. We mentioned X factors. Justin, what for X factor? It doesn't have to be a player; it can be a situation. What are you looking at going in for the Ducks here?
Yeah, I already mentioned 5-on-5, so that won't be my X factor, but that is important for them. Again, the Ducks do play that kind of high-flying game, but it is important to get those one-goal wins, because I don't think you're going to dominate the Oilers, considering how versatile they can be and how, I mean, we've seen them take over series, so this is not an easy team to beat, even with the fact that this was probably one of the worst versions of the team that we've seen. But the X factor player for me is Leo Carlsson. He is, to me, the Ducks' best forward and probably most impactful player. So you gotta have the best version of him to have a chance in this series, because, I mean, it's a lot to ask out of him. He's still a very young player, and this is his first playoff series. But if the Ducks want a chance, Leo Carlsson, I think, is going to be the guy to lead them to victory.
Yeah, he's quickly become a big part of this Ducks team. And that, I mean, maybe unexpected a little bit that he's this big of a player already, but I don't know. People were expecting it when maybe it was a bit of a surprise where he was drafted, but he's sure proving that that's probably where he should have been at the right then as well. So yeah, definitely big X factor. I'll throw Chris Kreider in there because he's always an X factor in the playoffs. He's really super playoff performer and kind of revitalized himself in Anaheim. So I think he could be a big part of this series as well. All right, keys to victory or X factor. I mean, Brian, I almost missed you there because you mentioned Connor Ingram, but is he the X factor for you, or you want to?
Yeah, as far as players go, he would be it. I think if we're looking at something else too, I mentioned would be power play. I know that, I mean, the Oilers have the number one power play in the NHL. I think the Ducks are bottom 5 penalty kill. So, I mean, that's an area that the Oilers, I think, could really exploit. The power play, I would say, won the series for them in the first round against Los Angeles last year, really turned that thing around when they were down 2-0 and really knocking on death's door and then just kind of completely reverse course there. So, yeah, I think that can be an area that the Oilers can really, really, have the upper hand in this series. So I'll say special teams.
Yeah, special teams, especially in the playoffs, there's not as many power plays as the regular season too. So those always are big parts of the game. All right, keys to victory. We've mentioned, probably alluded to a few of them already here as we've gone through it. But Justin, what's the keys to victory for the Ducks to come out of this series?
Yeah, I mean, it's what Brian already mentioned with the special teams. That's going to be a big factor here. If the Ducks can survive, that'll be huge. We've seen, as I've mentioned, we've seen the Oilers just take over games with their power play in the playoffs, and especially against LA last year. If you keep your guard down at all, I mean, they'll just take over a game. That's just what happens. So special teams, you got to be disciplined. Of course, it's very cliche, but it's especially true against the Oilers. And again, 5-on-5 play, that's going to be crucial for the Ducks. Just have to stay disciplined, have to, play that playoff style of hockey, right?
For sure. And the Ducks do take penalties. You see what Radko Gudas, how much penalty minutes he's racked up and what he does. But he is a playoff guy, so that's definitely something you're going to have to watch. He's going to have to kind of rein it in, I guess, for penalties, right? All right, Brian, what about for the Oilers? I mean, they're on a streak of winning. Of course, they've made it to the Stanley Cup final last 2 years. So they've been winning series quite a bit, but how are they going to get out of this one?
I think this will probably, if they're going to lose this series, I think they lose it in net. I like how they are in special teams. I like how they're, I think everything's kind of clicking for them right now. I think the big question will just be is how does Ingram perform? And that to me is it. And I think that's the key to victory. And I mean, I think if he can continue to give them what he has given them to this point, then I think they win this series. So, I mean, there's a lot of factors involved with this team. But that, to me, I think, like, if I look at one area where this series could turn in the Ducks' favor, it would be if Ingram is not able to perform up to the standards that he has. So that's what I'll go with.
Yeah, goaltending, I think that's the biggest thing. And it's an X factor. It's a key to victory. We're going to just talk about it all the time. And it doesn't end. Every series we've talked in the last few years, it's always come down to goaltending. It's going to come down to it again. All right, series MVP doesn't have to come from the team you're covering. I mean, you can pick who's going to be the best player in this series. So, Justin, I'll start with you.
I guess the easy answer would be McDavid. I mean, we've seen him take over series. Bouchard's another easy answer. He's done the same thing. But I'll say Dostal for Anaheim. I mean, he is going to be the most valuable player for sure. Well, not for sure, but if the Ducks are going to win this series, if the Ducks are going to have a chance, he's going to have to be big for them. So I'll pick him.
Well, there again, the Ducks goaltending is going to be a big part of it too. If Dostal's not good, they don't really have a lot to fall back on for backup. So yeah, that's a definite thing. Brian, who do you think? I mean, Connor McDavid, of course, he's going to be a big part of this series for the Oilers to win as well. But Who's going to be your series MVP?
Yeah, I mean, it's the easy and obvious answer, but I'll say McDavid. But I think especially in this case, because if Draisaitl isn't back for the first couple games, it becomes that much more important for McDavid. And I think that he will step up. You saw what he did down the stretch here with Draisaitl out. I'll toss in Hyman too, Zach Hyman, who's, he's kind of built a bit of a legend for himself with how he played the last few playoffs in Edmonton. He was out for several games too, just came back in the last game of the season and didn't really make much of an impact. But he's a guy that he's had some monster series in the playoffs, and I could see him as well stepping up and helping to carry the offensive load for this team here in round one.
Sure, and he was injured for a lot of the season too, and ended up with some pretty good totals, even though he was hurt for a big part of the season. So yeah, and he's been great in the playoffs for sure. All right, let's finish series predictions. How are we, Brian? Who's winning, and in how many games?
I'm going to say, all things being equal, I'll just say Oilers in 6. But you know what? I've said this the last few years. Teams in the NHL, you just don't see runs of year after year after year where teams have like deep playoff runs. Like everyone always kind of has that one hiccup, right? The Oilers have been to the second round 4 straight years now. They've been to the conference finals 3 out of 4 years. I just have this feeling that that slip up is coming one of these days, and maybe this is it. Maybe this is against just kind of an upstart young team that doesn't know any better, like the Ducks. They could be the one that gets them. So I'm kind of thinking. But that said, I'm going, or the easy prediction is Oilers, and I'll say Oilers in 6.
All right, Justin, what about you? Who's coming out of this series and how many games?
I would like to see it to go to 7, but I also have Oilers in 6. I mean, this is a tough test, and the Oilers aren't a true their record does not reflect the level of team that they are. But I do think the Ducks can give them some trouble. I mean, they definitely can. They have the upside for that. There's a reason why they're in this position, and they weren't too far off from the Oilers. I mean, they were in first, I believe, going into April or at least late March. So there's a reason this team is here, and I think they can maybe give Edmonton some trouble. But at the end of the day, the safe pick is Edmonton.
Yeah. I'm gonna pick the 7 games. I always like the 7-game series, so I'm gonna go the upset. I'm gonna go Ducks in 7. I mean the Oilers will have home ice, so the Ducks gonna have to win that game 7 on the road. But I really like their young talent and the mix of veterans that they got, and that can make a difference. Killorn and Kreider have both been deep into playoff runs. They've been key performers in those as well. So they can be big parts of this team moving forward. So I'm going to go, and I think Dostal's going to have a really good series as well. So I'm going to go Ducks in 7. And it should be a fun series, though. It's lots of speed, lots of skill on both sides. And I think it's going 7. And we'll see if the Ducks can make it out of it. All right. Well, make sure to check out everything at thehockeyriders.com. We got great content throughout the site on all the playoff series, and this one included. And check out all of our other series previews on the YouTube channel if you haven't checked them out already. The Eastern Conference, that's already started. We've got games going on. The Wild and Stars are the only game that is going on already. That'll be done by the time you're watching this. But thanks, Brian. Thanks, Justin, for coming on and previewing this series. So we'll see who's back for round 2. But until our next series preview, we will see you next time.